Welcome to the Legal Edge Coaching Podcast. This is your host, Trevor White, with
Shane Smith.
All right. Welcome to today's show. Shane, I was just joking with Shane because we just had a fiery conversation to get us pumped up for today's show and to dive into it, because there are so many things about life that we want to think they're one-dimensional, but they impact everything else. And so if you tuned in last week or the week before, we've been diving through something that we here at the Legal Edge call the Core Four, and we are now to the conversation of balance. Now, most of the time when I say the word balance, though, people hear the word balance and they think like balancing a life or what. So here at Legal Edge, Shane, what are we talking about when we're talking about
Yeah,
balance?
so we're talking about your family, right? So specifically, we're usually talking about your spouse and your kids. Now, obviously, some of our listeners may not have a spouse or kids, but I mean, that's generally what we frame the conversation around. And if you don't have that, you probably have a long-time girlfriend or some form of balanced life that you've got to get out of control or under control. Because even everybody who's got a boyfriend, girlfriend, as soon as they're going through a breakup, that still impacts their life and they suffer.
Yeah.
And when I talk to people, they're like, hey, I don't want to talk about this. I just want to talk about business. So I was like, we've had employees who went through a problem in their marriage or with their kids, and what happens to those employees? Their performance suffers, it goes down. So why would we think as the business owner we're any different, right? We get an exemption, we can keep our home life in a little closet and it's not going to bleed over. I mean, it's just not true.
No, it's ridiculous. I think what I've heard is it's somewhere from 6 to 12 months, right?
Yeah.
An employee that goes through it, like a divorce, right? For example, they go through a divorce, six to 12 months is what it takes for them to get back to the performance level that they were pre the divorce. And that's not including all the bullshit performance they had leading up to the divorce, right? Because you're chaos and everything's going crazy. So yeah, you're right. It is delusional to think this, right?
Yeah,
and obviously, if you're listening to the show, it means you're an attorney and you own your own firm, right? So you've taken on this trifecta, saying, "Hey, I'm a business owner," and then you went off and got married, and then most of you also had kids, right? So you've got this, or kids are on the way, whatever, wherever you're at in the stage. But this is this little triad here, right? We have a phrase for it, love it, right? The trifecta of insanity. How on earth do you balance the three of those at the same time? And so today we're going to talk about balance and what it actually means, because I screwed this up pretty intensely, right? It led to a divorce for me. And then that led to an implosion of my entire world, my business, all of the monetary things that I had accumulated, everything, my spirituality, my soul, literally who I thought I was, who I believed myself to be. And I crumbled into this mess because I didn't understand this. And I thought what we all think. Hey, I just need to go make more money. Well, you got problems in your life? Well, go make more money. Well, your marriage is a shit show. Your wife hates you. Well, she'll be happier if
you just make more money, buy her some
jewelry,
right?
Yeah.
Buy her purse.
So I can buy her some shit, or I can take her on the superstar vacation once a year.
But I actually think that's more detrimental than the purse or the jewelry. I'm going to go on the one vacation that's going to fix everything and change everything, and then in the vacation they're disconnected, even though you're together, or even you have a fabulous vacation, but then the other 51 weeks of your life are not that. And I think sometimes it's even worse because you see a glimpse of what it could be, with you being connected, not worried about work and all of that, and everybody happy. And then you go right back into business owner mode as soon as you get back, assuming you can disconnect from your firm enough to actually enjoy the vacation.
Yeah, which likely you can. Which you can.
Right.
I spent years when I would be at the office, and then when I was home, all my mind was thinking about the office. So even when I tried to take those vacations and take that time off, I was either on my phone dealing with clients or issues or whatever, or my mind was worrying about the things that were back. So I'm not even there with my family, even when I'm there with my family. I mean, there's a funny little joke that we talk about now, but we were at Disneyland and with my family. We actually were vacationing with another family. And so we're all there and we're hanging out. And I'm in the middle of when you go into Disneyland, anybody who's been there down in California, there's like this kind of entrance thing, and it has these, they always like trim their bushes really cool. They have like trimmed like the shape of Mickey. It says like, so it's really cool stuff, right? So I'm sitting there hanging out there, and I end up jumping on a client call. We had an issue, and I had to get on this call. And I'm sitting there on this client call, over off on the side of this thing, trying to remove myself from people. But guess what? There's people everywhere. It's Disneyland. But the very nature of me comes out in this client call, and I'm on this call for a long time. But it got intense for a few minutes, and there were F-bombs being dropped. I was like, motherfuck this and this. There was some shit going down. And my family and my friend were sitting there, and I wasn't even aware. Wasn't even paying attention. I'm just in the middle of the mode, but I guess talking afterwards, everyone is staring at me. My family's embarrassed out of their mind. They literally distance themselves and try to pretend like they don't know who I am. Because I'm sitting in this family environment thing, doing work on my phone in a very aggressive way because of what we were dealing with at the time. And this became, but I spent over an hour, and then I was derailed. I got off the call and I said, hey, guys, go without me. You should have gone without me anyways. I was almost pissed off at them for waiting for me. So I very aggressively said, leave me the fuck alone, go. And then I'm sitting there in this place alone, and then I'm dealing with work, so that it was insane, but it was normal. I thought it was normal.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I think everybody's had that, take the family to the beach, and you're up in the hotel room working while your wife and kids are down at the beach, or your spouse is down there, or they go to the pool, and you're like, oh, let me step over here. Why? Because I got to have my laptop and be on the phone while everybody else is playing. And I mean, think about it. You paid all that money, you blocked off your calendar, and you're still working, right? Or you try to get up 2 hours before everybody else so you can answer all your emails. I mean, there's all these things we do. Or my wife, I can remember this even a couple of years ago. I take her out on one of the dates, go to a nice restaurant. As soon as we sit down, the phone blips, text messages come in. Yeah. And you make the error of looking at it, which then sucks you right into work mode. And there's no getting back for the date at this point, right? Which I'm sure my wife appreciated, that I blocked off the time she got all dressed up and went to a nice restaurant, and I'm looking, and now I'm just dealing with work for 15 minutes.
Now you're hanging out with your work colleagues. Well, you have this beautiful woman called your wife sitting across the table from you, who wants nothing but one thing from you.
Yeah. Attention.
It's not your money. It's not your money. It's not your status. It's not your power. Your wife doesn't give a shit how big your billboard is. Like, they don't care about this. But we as specifically as men, and I know we have some women listeners, but specifically as men, I'll give you some insight, ladies. Us men, we're dumb. We're stupid because we get wrapped up in our own shit, and we totally disconnect. We don't mean to, but we just do, and then our version of solving it is literally the most Neanderthal way of doing it. We're going to blunt force trauma our way to buying more stuff. If I had more power, you would be happier. If I had more money, all of that. And it's a cycle that we just sit and circle around. And I did this until my wife left.
Yeah.
I was never there. I was never around. And finally she was like, I don't care how many cars we have, what our house looks like. If we have a house in multiple locations, I don't care. I never wanted any of that. And she said something to me one time. She it sounded like I'm pretty sure it's in a damn movie. But she's like, all I ever wanted was you.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I remember sitting there, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to give her me. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm doing everything I know how to do. I don't know. What do you mean? Give me? I don't know what you mean. I want more time with you. And I'm like, what does that mean? So I hang out with you. We hang out. But I'm not there. See, we're hanging out and I'm on the damn phone, or I'm doing this the whole time. And I didn't see it. And then all of a sudden we're divorced. All of a sudden she's like, I'm not having anything to do with you anymore. Like, we're done.
Yeah, no. I mean, I was going to say, my moment was, I'd been at a business conference, and I realized a couple of things. One, anytime I went to a business conference, I stayed in the hotel where the conference was at, right? Mm-hmm. And no matter what, whether it was a $200 a night room or whether it was a $400 or $500 a night room, I always stayed where the business conference was. No thought was ever given to it. And I realized, and if the group went out to a restaurant, I went wherever the restaurant was, right? Whether it's $20 Applebee's or whether it's a high-end restaurant, where it's going to be $100 a plate, I always went. And I realized when I went home, we didn't stay at the $500 a night place. I was always looking at how much the hotel room cost. And honestly, half the time, my default was, let's go to the Chili's or Applebee's or the $20 restaurant. Yeah. But I'm still looking at the price there versus when I'm out of the business thing, I don't look at the price, right? That's just part of it. And I realized I'm not doing any of that investing in my own family. And then I also realized I went to one of those events. We went to dinner, then we had drinks afterwards. And I look up and we've chilled and talked it was about business, but we've talked direct communication for 3 hours.
Yeah.
4 hours. And I was like, oh shit, when was the last time me and my wife had a 3-hour conversation where I wasn't on my phone, I wasn't answering an email, I wasn't doing anything else but just, talking to her about life and dreams and, whatever else.
Yeah.
And I realized at that point, I've got to make some changes, right?
Here's the crazy part, Shane. In that moment, all guys that do this, we all know, everybody's listening knows exactly what you're talking about because we all do this. And in that moment, we still say things like, well, my family's the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Because if that were true, then I could follow you around and there would be evidence of that. Problem is, even like what you're describing, dude, there is no evidence of that. It's like, no, well, that's second. If I'm only going to spend the money here, like I've done this. So my wife needed couches. She wanted some new couches. And I'm like, hey, babe, I'm going to get you these couches. But when I said these couches, I was like, well, let's go couch hunting. Let's figure out what you're talking about. She wanted these crazy high-end couches. I'm like, oh, what the hell we need couches for? That doesn't make us any money. That's what's going on in my head. I'm like, spending that much money doesn't get me anything other than a place to sit my ass. I don't need to sit. So we go to this store that has real nice stuff and it has like lower end stuff. This all in the same place called RC Willie's. I take my wife there, RC Willie's in Utah. We go to RC Willie's, and they got the $10,000 couch sets, and I get it. You can spend way more than that on couches, and I realize that now. But this was a while ago.
Back then, that was
a lot, right? So I'm like, that's so much money on a set of couches. I'm like, holy shit! And then we looked at some of those 10,000, and I'm walking by and I see this room. It's like off the showroom kind of, but it's just this room, this big open way, and I see couches in there, and I'm like, well, it's in there. Let's go check those out. So we go in there. It turns out that's like the clearance room. That was the clearance room with RC Willie's, and it was like mismatched sets, or maybe there was just a love seat. They didn't have anything else, or whatever. So we're looking at couches, and we see this. I see this one that's kind of like the style that she likes, and there's two of them, but it's not actually two. It's not like a full couch and a love seat. It's two love seats.
Yeah.
So there's two love seats sitting there, and I'm like, all those, and I start talking them up. I start my persuasion, my seduction that those are the couches you want, because those couches were $1,000 for both of them. The other ones, the other room had another zero on the back side of them.
Right.
I'm like, I don't want the $10,000 couch. I want because there's no value in there for me. There's no value, and so we end up getting $1,000 couches. And to this day, it still triggers her when we talk about me doing that. But I finally figured this shit out with her. This is my current wife. Like we're in a great now, but she was patient with me. She got it, but she berated me one time off of this. Same thing with you in the hotels, right?
Yeah.
She was basically, you love that more than me. I'm not worth it to you. Because I can't make you money, you don't care about me. These are the things she's telling me in the heat of the moment. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there, and I was pissed at first. And then I was like having to accept the reality that I would be willing to go spend $10,000 on anything that had to do with business. Anything. Didn't matter what it was. 10 grand on ads all day long. Wouldn't even bat an eye. But $10,000 for my wife? No chance. No, you're going to get the $1,000 shit couches. You're not getting the nice things. And I finally got this correlation that I actually had to invest in her too. She actually wasn't a liability. She didn't cost me money. She was my investment. And she was actually the ultimate investment. And to be in a position that I can invest in the things she wanted was like, oh, that actually matters. Turns out.
Oh yeah, because she's who you said you want to spend the rest of your life with, right?
Like, if you're right, stock's cheap. Right, I can sit and say, hey, you're the most important person in the world to me, babe. I love you so much. Here's some flowers. And she's like, well, yeah, but I'm seeing what you're doing. She's not stupid. Our spouses are not stupid. They see this. They understand this. So it's not even about money. It's not only about money. It's about what I understood and learned from this is there has to be an investment into her. And what's crazy is the more, and I know this is the same for you, Shane, the better my relationship came with my wife, the more I put her first and would sacrifice quote unquote business deals or conversations, or I would put things off in business because she was actually the priority on Friday night. My phone didn't come with me, right? It was her and I, and it was all her. What happened was not did I lost business, it was the opposite, right?
Yeah.
My business starts growing the soon as I start actually investing in the things that mattered, i.e., she's my backbone, the stability.
I was going to say it's the stability, right? It's the stability in a happy home life. And I don't mean in the phrase, happy wife, happy life kind of thing. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about, the certainty, the ride or die gal. She knows you are investing in the family. She's gets some security, whatever your security is for your relationship.
Yeah.
Monetarily wise. Once you have that number, they're usually good. And what's bad is like it took a long time for me to even figure that out, right? That my wife worried when the money went up and down that it caused her a lot of stress. Yeah, because I'm just like, we'll figure it out, babe. Right?
Yeah.
I've always figured it out before. Why are you stressed now? I'm stressed because it's been 15 freaking years of up and down. Right? I mean, and it's like, yeah, you've always made it work. And it's not about the money, but I don't know whether to dial it up or dial it down or whether it matters or not kind of deal.
Yeah.
And I found, great home life allows me to be more aggressive at work. It allows me to push, to be certain, to know my home life is out of control, is nice and under control. So I can focus on work when I'm at work.
Yeah. Well, it's like the polar, right? When things are great, sometimes it's hard to quantify that, right? Things at home are great. You're like, is that really making you a better man? Here's how you know that's true, that statement is true. Because when things are not great, right? You just got a big ass fight. And then all of a sudden you have to go into an important board meeting or a conference with your team, whatever it is. You're bringing that big old fight with you. So there's this broken version of you showing up and having to push it away, stuff the emotions away, and then show up as this powerful person. I've watched this happen many times. You're dealing with a new client, trying to get the client to sign with you, right? Trying to get a new deal. And you've got the baggage of the fact that you and your spouse are at war. And so you're sitting here and there's this part of you, it's like a boat that's just leaking out the back. And you're sitting over here trying to stand powerfully and you just have your powers being drained from you. And then you've got to plug it. There's been times and I've come to learn this. And there's been times when my wife and I are not in a good spot. And I've got some important shit coming up. And I realize if I don't fix what's going on here at home, I'm going to derail what's happening outside of the home. So it's almost, we could call this even like a self-centered way of looking at it. It was like, no, I need to have a great marriage because I've got big plans for my life.
Right.
And it doesn't work. My plans don't work without a great marriage. But this is tough. It's easy for you and I right now in this moment to sit and talk to this, right? What would you say to somebody who's they're on the side where they've got the firm that they're devoted, right? They're doing what they want to do. They think they are. I can promise you they're scaling at a fraction of what they could, but they're on the growth track, right? Same thing you were on, right? What would you say to that person when they don't have the great home life? Like, how are they supposed to handle this? Because you and I have been through this. So we've learned how to do it. But like you look at someone who hasn't, right? They're hearing what we're saying right now. And they're like, dude, this sounds like fantasy.
I think, with one, I'd say think back to how you were when you were first getting to know each other, when you were first dating, right? How were you showing up then? And of course, it goes on all aspects of, the core four, body being balanced in business. I mean, all of that plays a part. But I think most of us, we default and we get lazy, and we quit doing all the things that made them fall in love with us, right? I mean, most of the time we quit dressing up, we quit giving them our attention and focus. And the biggest problem I see is people who've had a shitty home life for a long time. And then they're like, oh, they come to the training and they think, oh, I've learned all this stuff, I'm going to change. Boom. And they want to change over a week. They're like, what do you mean? I've been giving my wife love notes for a week. Why is she not in love with me again? Or I took on a date.
You've been a total douchebag for 20 years, and then all of a sudden you do 5 Post-it notes, and all of a sudden it didn't happen. She doesn't trust you yet. Weird.
But that happens all the time, right?
Oh, it totally does.
I mean, and
half of the clients I've ever worked with, that's exactly what happens. They're like, well, I'm doing this thing. I should have this result. I'm like, dude, you're an idiot. You spent 20 years ruining this. You think you're going to fix it?
Well, I told my wife I've changed. I mean, come on. I mean,
why doesn't she believe me? Why doesn't she trust me? Damn it.
I'm going to say, one, you need to know your wife's love language, right? Whatever that is. As cheesy as that is, what they value. And, you also need to figure out what your love language is, right? Because, and what makes your spouse happy. I mean, mine wants attention, right? I think most spouses want attention. Now, men want attention from their wives and wives want attention from their men. But, to really go on a real date, right? Like, and my standard is twice a month, right? You need a real date twice a month. Now, I think you do other dates, but I mean, going to for me and my wife, we go to the local Mexican restaurant. We enjoy that, right? It's not a crappy date for us, but it's certainly not a real date. I mean, it's not getting dressed up.
Yeah.
But, her putting makeup on and going out to a place where I planned. I had to figure out, like, I've tried my date, your date, where it's my responsibility and her responsibility because somebody told me that doesn't work for us. For us, my wife wants me to at most give two choices, but really she wants to be like a date, right? Yeah. When we were first dating, I didn't call her and say, hey, you want to go to Chili's? You want to go to Applebee's? You want to go to pizza? Nope. That's not what I did.
You told her where you were going by taking her there. You didn't even tell her. You're just like, hey, we're going to dinner.
And that's what my wife enjoyed that, right? Yeah. It makes her feel special, makes her feel like I gave forethought to something that would make her happy, or we could go and I planned it. Yep. I got reservations or whatever, and we went, so that was what I had to figure out for her. And you got to dress up too. I mean, the problem for me a lot of times is I wear a suit every day to work. Right. And dressing up means nothing to me, but my wife also doesn't consider me wearing a suit that I wore to work, dressing up to go out with her.
Right. Oh yeah.
She goes, well, that's just your work clothes. I mean, so it's weird for lawyers in that, right? We can't wear the same thing and think we're dressing up.
You got to have date night clothes. You have to have date night clothes. I have date night clothes. I have clothes that are literally I don't wear them for anything other than date night.
I know. I do too.
Yep. You have to, because you have to create this. You have to create the I give a shit meter. That you're actually putting some effort into this thing, into the conversation.
Yeah, well, and that's what she said one time. She goes, "No, I like it that you planned out and figured out where it was at, and you said it was okay to spend the money, right? And what I mean by that is, I took her to a place, so I know what it costs to go, and I took her there. I ordered the drinks, or I picked out the hotel we're going to stay at. That I've done all that, so it's okay for her then to go enjoy it all. She doesn't have to worry about, do we have the money or anything else.
Yeah.
Right. Which she didn't need to worry about it anyway, but she did worry about it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
But that's a huge thing. My wife likes a note every day. Right. I think there's some kind of communication to your spouse that's non-sexual. Based on I love you, or I honor you, I appreciate, or thanks for doing this, or something, right? And most of our notes are like that. And I've argued with folks because they're like, how can you do that every day? We do 3x5 cards. I've done Post-it notes. And I give a Post-it note to my boys when they were in the house. And now I do text messages. It's one way, and you're going to give a whole bunch of those. My wife does not like giving me Post-it notes back. She doesn't like it, but she likes to keep all mine. And so, I mean, that's the main way I do it with my wife, right? Like the appreciation notes. I try to go on 2 dates a month that are real dates that aren't just our local hangout, our local hangout places. And then we try to do, I try to do like 2 vacations with her a year, right? And a vacation can be like 3 days or it can be longer, depending on where you're at and where your practice is and where your kids are. Mm-hmm. And that's been, and when I go on dates, to try to be there with her, right? That means not looking at my phone, not scrolling on Instagram. It means being ready to go when we're ready to go. And so I want to be ready before she is, right? I want to be ready. I want to be sitting there waiting, either in a chair, so when she comes out and I can acknowledge her and talk to her and give her my focus, versus rushing to put the dog up to let the dog out, rushing to grab my hat and coat and all that. That doesn't work well for me because there's no transition. And then I do things like not notice her, right? I mean, even though we're in a date going together. So I have to be ready 5 minutes before. That's just what I have to do.
Yeah.
I was going to say, what's the main ways you invest into your marriage.
Well, there's tons of them, and we could spend a million hours on this conversation. Here's what I want to get across of what you just said. You have to invest in the things that matter to you.
Yeah.
Your marriage, if you want a marriage that's on fire, you basically just rattled off a masterclass list of all of the ways, different tactics you could do. But really the overarching theme is, do you invest, and do you want to, well, if you want that marriage, if you want that life, it will require you to invest, right? It requires you to invest in that thing, in the marriage that you have, in that life.
So that's our little, I guess, our talk on marriage. You know, the main thing is you just got to invest in it and treat it like it's important, like it matters. And that's with, you know, time and energy, not just money. And I think that's the key is, you know, it's going to take three things, right? Time, energy, and money. But if we only ever put money in, it's never going to work. So it's got your spouse doesn't feel like they matter. They're important, you know, at least as much as your business, if not more.
Yeah.
So that's a wrap for today. We will talk to you next week. And if you think anybody can benefit from our class or our conversation, hit like and subscribe and forward this podcast over to them. And we hope to see you on the other side. If you have any questions about what we do here at the Legal Edge, go to our website at legaledgecoaching.com. Talk to you then.
See you later.